All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick today. We're going to be breaking down the NFC North, as you can clearly tell from the jersey in my background, NFC North legend Manny Machado, City Connect Padres edition. Then we're going to talk the Tour de France, break down markets there, and then we'll close out with our best bets for Wimbledon after an eventful couple of days. Pour one out for Belinda Bencic, which hurts. And pour one in for Ons Jabeur, coming off the 6-3, 6-love, 6-3 annihilation of Petra Kvitova. But Drew, how are you? How was your weekend?
It was awesome. Tennis has been great. Wimbledon has been so enjoyable after a super slow start. It was worth the wait. We have an absolutely loaded field still. Tons of really, really high quality matches. The conditions are starting to change a little bit. You can see center court getting a little faster. I think that dynamic is going to play into, who can adapt their game and continue to, find something special here. And I think, what we have on the women's side is probably the real drama. It's still wide open. I mean, really, to be this far into the tournament and say that with a straight face is not normal. We almost always are kind of looking at things as, clear, some clear things start to shape up as you see the draw work itself out. And we are still in a very, very competitive field here. Iga is the rightful favorite because her path is the softest, but I really only see that for the quarter. She's going to have a tough test in the semifinals against an informed player, whoever comes through. And then the bottom half of this draw is just awesome. So many very, very, very good women are still alive. And it starts with a rematch of a match that I don't really want to talk about, but we got to. And that's last year's Wimbledon final, Jay, because Rybakina, Ons Jabeur, part 2 is Ons. And I'm
not ready.
I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to bet it. I'm going to struggle through the emotional aspects of coming so close last year. But it's amazing what a difference a year makes, because Jabeur was the clear favorite heading into last year's final. And now Rybakina opens up this match at minus 160 in a number of places. And that's a lot of confidence for a woman who we haven't really seen tested yet. And really just, I thought maybe against Beatriz Haddad-Maia, we would see a longer match, potentially one that really kind of tested her fitness, but Haddad-Maia was not up to it physically, retires early. So we still don't know if the endurance is there for Rybakina and whether she can handle a long match. And we don't know what the mental state of Jabeur is going to be in a rematch on center court against the boogeyman from last year. So, I'm ons or pass here at these prices, and it's going to be a soul-searching endeavor to determine if I'm going to really get back on board with ons and live through it again.
It's sickening. It's sickening to say out loud, but I've already backed ons at plus 140. Price is just too big. This should be closer to pick. Be closer to pick, I think, with what ons showed. I mean, here's the thing: is that we were talking about how ons should have been just about the favorite to win the tournament last year, and the only thing that really has changed in a big way, obviously, Rybakina and Sabalenka have emerged since last year in a greater way, and Iga is still there, and Iga is unkillable seemingly. But at the same time, Ons is the best. I think she has the best grass court game when she's on her game, and the way that she played against Kvitova. The thing that's concerning to me is, like, after the match, Ons is saying in the interview, like, I don't know who that was out there today. It's like, no, it was you, Ons. It was you. You need to believe in yourself. You can't be treating it as though someone else has taken over your body to play a good match of tennis. You need to actually believe that it's going to happen. But anyway, let's just get to our best.
I read it to that. She was saying, I don't know who that was I played, because that did not look like Petra Kvitova to me. I don't know who that was.
Yeah. Well, even when she got broken back in the second set, and normally you'd think, On's going to blow it again, like she blew it against Haddad-Maia in Paris. But having seen Kvitova, I was like, no, this is fine. Like, Ons is going to roll through this. Kvitova is not. She's not there mentally. Anyway, since we've been talking about Wimbledon, let's get to our best bets now. Like I said, I like Ons. I do actually like Ons at plus 140 against Rybakina. I think that should be closer to pick. A lot of uncertainty about Rybakina. But my other bet is Jess Pegula -2.5 games, -110 against Marketa Vondrasova. Vondrasova, who has been fine and has definitely exceeded expectations, but she was in a real dogfight against Marie Buskova, who I don't think is the most threatening opponent. And the fact that she was really on the ropes against Buskova, I don't think that's a great sign. Jess Pegula just doesn't lose games anymore. The past 3 games, no one's gotten more than 5 games against her. She didn't come in great form, but I think that it's a reminder that even in lead-up tournaments, if players, big-name players like Pegula, like Jabeur, maybe they're just waiting to flick the switch in a Grand Slam. I think that we've maybe seen that from Jess Pegula. She's on a rampage at the moment, and I think this is all set up for her to win this match and then lose 7-6, 7-6 to Iga in the semi, and that's the way this is going to go. What do you think of Pegula Vondrasova?
Yeah, I struggle with Pegula being this big of a favorite, but I get what you're saying. And I'm kind of shaded a little bit because we haven't seen her tested. That said, Vondrasova is a very, very talented player. This is the first time we were ever seeing her put anything together on grass. And she's also a little bit inconsistent in terms of her ability to bring top level tennis. So if she no-shows, we're not going to be surprised here. Don't entirely, disagree with any kind of plus money attack you can find on this market, be it games, Pegula 2-0 or even taking a shot on the underdog here. But Pegula she's looked good, but boy, oh boy, I would like to see her go up against someone whose game I have a little bit more respect for. The Iga match and again, I'm with you on Ons. 100%. I think the question at this point is just, is it going to hurt a little bit or is it going to hurt a lot? And I haven't made that decision yet. But the match that really stands out for me in the quarterfinals is Iga -5.5 games. Svitolina, a very, very happy to be here type of mentality, in my opinion, in this particular match. This is a lopsided matchup on a good day. And I think, Iga coming through the way she did against Bencic with, being able to fight off match points and then find another gear in the third set. To a degree, I think that spells trouble for, at least the top half of the women's draw at this point. Svitolina, great player, great story. Really happy she's in the second week. One of my favorite players to bet on going back to like 2017, 2018, when she was kind of really coming up. But I really can't come anywhere close to fair price being 5.5 games here. I think the median expectation for me is Iga wins by 6. Modal expectation is Iga wins by 6. Long tail to Iga coming home with the 6-2, 6-0. At some point in this match. And so I laid the 5.5 games on the Polish world number 1, Iga Świątek. And I still think she's got her work cut out for her in the final, whoever she ends up playing. It's going to be tough at this point. I would even give Madison Keys a meaningful shot against Iga if she's ultimately the one who gets there. And I don't think Madison Keys over Sabalenka, by the way, at plus money is a bad bit either. But to me right now, the top half does look chalky. Bottom half looks pretty exciting, pretty interesting, and gotta have some dog prices.
Yeah, couple things. Firstly, the fact that Madison Keys is right now a distant 6th favorite for the tournament. She's won 18 of her past 19 sets on grass. Like, she's absolutely in insane form, and yet at the same time, very easily could have lost 6-3, 6-1 to Andreeva. So I'm not really sure what to make of Keys. I think she's probably more kind of second tier beneath Rybakina, Iga, Sabalenka, and Ons. I would say there's a little bit of separation, but at the same time, this form is insane, and she's claimed some big scale. Like, she's beaten Iga and Rybakina in straight sets in the past 12 months, so she could absolutely win this tournament. And then secondly, Iga Świątek has to be the strangest best player in a sport in recent memory, where in these big games, she gets so tight. She was so tight against Bencic. Her forehand gets so loose, and she's just all over the place. And yet at the same time, she's an absolute warrior. And on these big points against Bencic, those 2 match points, she played them absolutely perfectly. Yeah. She seems to go from just ice water in the veins to very much hot water in the veins, just back and forth, but seems to pull it out when she needs to ultimately.
Yeah. She has the weirdest thing going where it's almost like if she's not destroying her opponent, she loses confidence.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't have, and I think it's probably just a youth and inexperience thing. The more she kind of goes through and gets wins like that, I think she kind of calms down to where if it's 6-6, she's literally can go into a tiebreak with the mentality of Djokovic. Because right now she's not doing that. She goes into a tiebreak and she's holding on for dear life, and she can't believe she hasn't won 6-2 already. And that's just sort of the nature of the success she's had to this point in her career. So wins like she got against Bencic, I think, will go a long way to kind of making her a little bit more well-rounded player. But at the same time, she does not look especially natural on grass yet.
No, she doesn't. And Bencic really could have gotten her. The fact that also she leaves the door open, like she really left the door open for Ons in the US Open final, to Mukova in the French Open final. So I think ultimately, someone is going to get her. And it's probably going to have to be in the final, given that I think that she's going to get there, given the players in her half of the draw. All right, let's pivot to from Iga Swiatek to Dan Campbell and Jared Goff, Lions. Talk about the NFC North. Start off with those Lions, who are the favorite to win the NFC North. Can't remember the last time that was the case. They're plus 130 to win the division. Fourth favorites in the NFC, which seems aggressive, but then you realize the fifth and sixth favorites are the Saints and the Seahawks, and puts into perspective that the NFC is pretty wide open. They are plus 850 to win the NFC, 20-1 to win the Super Bowl. Heavy favorites to make the playoffs at minus 175. Do you think that the Lions being treated as the fourth best team in the NFC, the clear class of the NFC North, is justified?
I don't. I get it. So when you think about the Lions and sort of the arc of public support for this team, it makes sense why the markets was quick to shorten on them. They were the fourth best team in the NFC last year by a power rating at the end of the season. They finished the season white hot. And with that, covered lots of games. They were an automatic bet. Even in the final game of the season, playing for nothing, eliminating the Packers in playoff contention was quite cool. It's also easy to see why players kind of get, why the betting public tends to gravitate towards them, because Dan Campbell's exciting. He says fun stuff in press conferences, and they have a lot of young talent on this team that is easy to identify. At the same time, I look at a squad and a team and an offense in particular that overperformed a decent amount last year, particularly at the quarterback position. Jared Goff finished as the seventh best QB and by EPA per play last year. I don't think he's the seventh best quarterback in the NFL.
No, sir.
So at that point, he can only really, again, overachieve, or he can regress back to where we think he would be, somewhere in the middle of the pack. There is a very real potential that whatever Ben Johnson is cooking with that offensive scheme is good enough to keep, Goff firmly planted in the top 10. That's we saw with Jimmy G and Kyle Shanahan. This is not a new thing. It's not impossible to elevate, kind of a truly average quarterback to top 10 by the way that you're calling your offense. And maybe that's what they do. But I will pay to see it because I think regression is likely, and maybe even, or is possible, maybe even likely. And I would look specifically at the fact that they are drawing dead as sort of the sacrificial lambs week 1 against the Kansas City Chiefs in Banner Night. So if you like the Lions, if you have any affinity to bet this team, I would just implore you to be patient. You're going to get a better price before week 2 than you can get right now on these guys. Right? There's going to be some team in the NFC North that wins their week 1 matchup, looks really good, and the Lions are going to have, the stink of being, used as the sacrificial lamb against the Chiefs on opening night. So I think realistically, it's fine to have optimism for them. They have the best, they have the best offensive line in their division, one of the best offensive lines in football. But the defense has huge questions. And I think Goff is due for some regression. So a little cautious optimism for me on the Lions. Is that about where you're at?
Yeah, I think so. And one interesting thing for the Lions, who I am largely more cool on, I think, than consensus and the rest of the market, is that as I was looking into them the other day, after October 22, they don't play a single road game that is not either in a dome or against the Chicago Bears. So that's helpful, because I think the stuff about Goff outdoors is real, and I think that's borne out. So the fact that their road games after week 7 are Chargers, Saints, Bears, Vikings, Cowboys, that's very helpful for them. I think that when it gets colder, they're going to be indoors, but at the same time, I can't get involved in the Lions, plus 130 to win the division. Their win total is 9.5, back slightly over. I'd be looking elsewhere in the division. I think this is a really compelling division for the Coach of the Year market. Firstly, the two favorites for the award are both in this division. Dan Campbell is the favorite at plus 900, and then Matt Eberflus is second at 10-1. And we'll talk about the Bears shortly. Campbell was one of my biggest bets last year at 20-1 preseason, because I think there's a lot of Mike Brown, Sacramento Kings about Campbell, in that the Lions have been so destitute for so long that as soon as they have success, he's going to just get an accelerant of credit. But now expectations are that they're a plus 130 division champ. And I think that the only way that he's going to win this award is if they win 13 plus games. And then even then, if they don't get the 1 seed, he might have competition from elsewhere. So plus 900, I can't get involved at that price or even close.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to add to the fire. Defense might be bottom 5 personnel-wise. Oh. Secondary looks weak. Pass rush is a lot of question marks. And your point is fair. They may come down the home stretch hot again, especially as you get guys off suspension. Jameson Williams, namely, like he could be the X factor for that offense. And so, I really think if you feel like ultimately the Lions can repeat what they did towards the end of last season, just be patient.
Yep, I agree with that. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings, who might have been the strangest team last year, where they went 13-4. They clearly weren't a 13-4 team, but I kind of feel like they underachieved in that they were a 500 team, but should have been better than a 500 team, and yet went 13-4. If any of that makes sense. Where I don't really understand why their offense wasn't better. I know it was fine, but when you look at, they have a sneakily decent offensive line now, particularly when Christian Darrisaw is in there. They have obviously Justin Jefferson is the offensive player of the year. And then they added TJ Hawkinson, which really should have set their offense alight, but just never really got there. And then obviously they lose in pretty embarrassing fashion, I think, to the Giants in the playoffs. This year, their win total is 8.5, backed over. They're plus 280 to win the division. They are a dog to make the playoffs at plus 115, 16-1 to win the conference, 40-1 to win the Super Bowl. I think to most, they would be one of the most, I think, just blah, kind of uninspiring teams, which is weird because they have Justin Jefferson. They're an offensive team, but just seems like the fact that their 13-4 record was so fraudulent has had people go the other way, whereas I would probably be more inclined to bet the Vikings at plus 280 to win the division than the Lions at plus 130. But what do you make of this team?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I was expecting that there was going to be more pessimism from the market on the Vikings, and it was really going to drift that price, and we could potentially kind of wait and let it settle and then scoop some plus EV bets on the Vikings as we get into the close. But there's not quite enough pessimism really surrounding this team. I think everybody is sort of as confused as, we would sort of lay out the picture at the top, which I think was totally fair. To make things even more confusing, the Vikings were power rated as an average team all year last year.
Yep.
Market said this team is average. Vikings fans were looking at win-loss. Vikings, backers, whatever, futures holders, they were all looking at the win-loss and saying, this doesn't square. And in reality, even rating the Vikings as an average team, they were potentially overrated. So it was people were looking at them as underrated, but they were actually overrated. It's all a giant mess. And I will tell you this: Kirk Cousins, average quarterback. He defines an average quarterback in almost every single metric you can possibly come up with. He is going to regress in terms of game-winning drives this year. He's going to regress in terms of fourth quarter comebacks this year. The Vikings are going to regress in terms of close games won this year. Like, all of those numbers were completely unsustainable last year, but the market knows this, and they've set their win total appropriately. So you can't really take any action on that at all. I think where the keys kind of handicapping the Vikings in general, trying to read between the lines a little bit about who they think they are as a franchise and what their ultimate intentions are going forward, because they are trotting out a very young and inexperienced defense. In fact, they are not, kind of bottom. No, they are. Excuse me. They are bottom 5 defense in terms of personnel by, even with the likes of Danielle Hunter, who is an outstanding pass rusher on this squad. And so they're going to take some lumps. They're going to give up some points. They're going to need to be comeback mode, fourth quarter mode, win close games mode if they're going to make the playoffs this year. And that's just a fragile situation. So I entirely get the market a little bit cool on them and not really wanting to, but not cool enough that we can scoop some overreaction value on them. Great tackle. You mentioned Christian Darrisaw, I think is a top 5 tackle. Obviously, Justin Jefferson is a top 2, if not top 1 wide receiver in the NFL right now, which is an amazing asset to have. And if O'Connell continues to develop that offense, they are going to score points, but they are going to give up points. And so far, the 2 teams we've talked about in the NFC North to me look like dead nut overs.
Yep. And also, it should be noted that in their first 6 weeks or 7 weeks, they play at the Eagles, Kansas City, San Francisco. There'll be meaningful dogs in all those games, Chargers as well, and then some easier matchups against the Bucks, Panthers, and Chiefs. I mean, they're a strange team. The only bet that I've made around the Vikings is betting on Justin Jefferson at 15-1 to win Offensive Player of the Year. I don't understand why some places have Jamar Chase favored over Jefferson, yet Jefferson favored to win the receiving title, which we talked about last week. I think that Jefferson should again be favorite to that award, just the sheer amount of usage, and obviously he's pretty good as well. So he should be the favorite there, not Jamar Chase, just because Chase has more guys competing with him. Let's go to the Green Bay Packers now. The win total is 7.5 there, slightly backed over, plus 165 to make the playoffs, 4-1 to win the division. I think they are probably the highest variance team in the division, just because I have no idea what Jordan Love is. Is Jordan Love going to be benched and out of the NFL after 2 months, or is he going to be the best quarterback in the division potentially? Like, that's on the cards too. So don't really know what to make of this team. And because of that, I think that the ways to ride the variance, which we've talked about previously, is betting on Matt LaFleur at 18-1 now to win Coach of the Year, where I think that if they win the division and get 11-12 wins, then he's going to get a ton of credit, because I think some voters still reconciling with the way that I think a lot of people wanted to vote for him, Coach of the Year, 2 different years recently, but just couldn't separate him from Aaron Rodgers' MVP seasons and didn't know how to divide the credit, and ultimately divided it somewhere else. And so if he is in the mix again and there's no Aaron Rodgers, I think that he's going to really get pushed to the award. So that's the bet I've made around the Packers. But what do you think of this team?
Yeah, they are. I think you described it well. I would kind of frame it as range of outcomes is the widest of any of these NFC North teams. Winning 10 games, 11 games is not out of the question if Love hits and if all of that young, skill position group takes a step forward. This is going to be as good a team as any in a very weak NFC conference. And so I think the identifying an upside is fair. Identifying a downside is also very fair. It is a lot easier to take action in high, in sort of the bigger prices on, to the good. And so the immediate thing I ask myself when you have a situation like this, like, oh, high variance team, ceiling is high potentially. What does their schedule look like? Does their sequencing of their schedule lend them to a decent start to the season? And as I look at this schedule, I think that it does. I think that it is a realistic expectation that they could be the last team standing in terms of undefeated in their division. I think you could get to the halfway point and they could have potentially a 2-game lead over particularly the Lions, who we mentioned could have a difficult start to the season. And so for those reasons, it was a very straightforward idea to take Packers at 5-1 to win the division. Now that's shortened to 4-1, which you're seeing on the screen now. And I think you're getting closer to fair, but still have a decent amount of upside there with that team. But your other, conceit there of LaFleur generally scooping up all of the credit if the Vikings somehow get a top 3 seed in a weak NFC, I 100% agree with. He is very live for Coach of the Year. I think he should be in the co-favorite discussion. If you can find 18-1, 20-1 out there, put that in your pocket. I have some of that myself. I think it's a very fair play. Not my favorite Coach of the Year bet, but it's in my top 2. But I do have a decent amount of Packers to win the NFC in the 5-1 plus 480 range. Plus 480 was the last bet I made on that. And I think realistically they can get out to a hot start, which will help shorten all those prices.
Yep. And the other really good thing with Lafleur Coach of the Year is that the Packers have 5 different night games, and they also play on Thanksgiving during the day in addition to that. So it's effectively 6 primetime games. So unlike someone, say, Arthur Smith, who I don't think plays any night games, I think he would go a little bit more under the radar than Lafleur on the Packers. If they are doing well, then I think he's definitely going to get the credit. No other real awards bets. I wouldn't be betting Jordan Love MVP at 50-1 or anything. Rashawn Gary, if he's healthy and back and 100% for week 1, then he is maybe a long shot sleeper for Defensive Player of the Year, but rather wait and see what he looks like before betting that.
Let's go to Chicago. By the way, real quick, I'm pretty prepared to turn heel on these guys.
Yeah.
If they're winning games early, but we're not seeing like sustainable, like they're going to get into like the 10-win range, I'm very prepared to just dump all my Packers stock on a dime. So this is one of the teams, just again, the high variance side of it. Like they could stink out of the gate and this could all be dead money right away, or they could do well out of the gate, but we could scoop some equity and we may have to make a tough decision middle of October.
Yeah, could definitely see a situation where the Packers start off 6-1 and Lafleur's plus 275 for Coach of the Year, and
yeah,
think about how to fade him because the turn is coming. That's definitely in play. Let's talk about the Chicago Bears. The win total is 7.5, slightly backed over, same as the Packers. 4-1 to win the division as well. 28-1 to win the conference for the True Believers. Plus 170 to make the playoffs. Obviously, they made a lot of upgrades on their defense in particular, but they still got a fair way to go. Still don't know what they're going to do at corner or at pass rush or defensive line in general, really. The offense should be exciting, though, with Fields, another very high variance player where he has MVP potential upside. I wouldn't be betting him at current prices, but he is kind of breaks the rules of the game. Could be a 2019 Lamar Jackson type season. That's in the realms of outcomes. I don't think it's likely, but the offense should be pretty exciting. The defense, though, should weigh them down. But when you're looking at teams like this, you want to have a more reliable offense and hope to fluke the 17th ranked defense, which could be done. But have you bet anything on the Bears?
It's pretty funny when you invest all of your offseason resources on the defense and bring in all these players and you have a bottom 5 defense still in terms of player personnel rating. It's not going to be easy for the Bears to get wins if they are not scoring into the high 20s, low 30s, in my opinion. Did they do enough to address the issues with the offense to allow Justin Fields to continue to develop and emerge and score into the high 20s, low 30s? Maybe. I see them as still relatively weak on the offensive line. I think the interior offensive line especially is they're not bottom 5, but they're definitely bottom half of the NFL. And if you are getting into situations where Justin Fields is scrambling, aggressively and, not able to mature as a passer to complement what is an absolutely amazing running attack, then I think that you're talking about a team that's probably going to be underachieving. And you're going to have a really, really, really tough question at the end of the season about what you do, continuing to build around Fields or move on. And I think the promise is absolutely there. He is talented enough to where if the offensive line comes together and if he gels with his skill position players, this Bears offense could be top 5 and he could be a candidate for Offensive Player of the Year. That's absolutely in the cards. He was one of the most dynamic runners with the ball in his hands last year, and he has the ball in his hands on every freaking snap. That is one of the beauties of having like that kind of an athlete at the quarterback position in today's NFL. And so I see high upside potential for the offense. I see virtually no upside potential for the defense, which means again, like they're going to be in a lot of 30-30 type of games. And at that point, you just want to have the ball in your hands last, and you hope that Fields takes a step forward and wins you those games. They could be last year's Minnesota Vikings and win 13-4, and we're all kind of banging our heads against the wall. Like, this is an average, maybe below average team. That could be this year's Bears. But I need to see more from the coaching. I need to see more specifically from Justin Fields to get there. And so for now, at least, this is an easy pass for me.
Yeah, agreed. And Fields, I mean, as much as they say is MVP upside, we also just need to see like sustained above average quarterback play reality from him first. This is the type of thing where I think a few years ago, Justin Fields might have been 60-1, 70-1 to win MVP, and I would have liked that. 18-1, can't get close to that. Matt Eberflus is the second favorite for Coach of the Year at 10-1. Again, no interest at that price. I do think that he is someone who can definitely win just because Chicago, big market, a team that had the worst record in the league last year, and they have realistic upside to win the division just because it's not a very good division. And Eberflus, I think, would get a ton of credit for that, but 10-1 have to fade him. At that price, there are better options in that market, like my man Lafleur and your man Mike Tomlin. All right, before we talk about the Tour de France, a reminder that Sunday mornings means MLB lead off. The Giants, the NL West competing Giants, like the Giants, plus 850 to win that division. They face the Pirates, the competent Pirates this year, once more in Pittsburgh. Both teams hope to move up in their divisions, but only one can rise up on Sunday morning. Watch MLB Sunday leadoff live at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, exclusively on Peacock. All right, Tour de France. This is your segment, Drew. Talk to me about the general classification, the yellow jersey. Your man Tadej Pogacar is -125. Vingegaard, possibly Vingegaard, is the second favorite at +110. Seems to be a 2-horse race. Anyone you like there?
I've settled on Vingegaard as the pronunciation. Like it's like the GEAU, like Go Tigers, LSU.
Yeah.
Vingegaard. He's a bet for me at +110. This is a really, 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 really close Tour de France. And I can tell you, having watched this race every year for the last 20 years, that it is rare that we are talking week 2 and there is this much uncertainty about who the best rider on tour is. Vingegaard is definitely a hair below Pogacar in terms of his like riding talent. Okay, there's a gap, and Pogacar is the better rider, but Vingegaard's team is substantially stronger still. And I think what you saw in week 1, particularly stages 5 and 6, were it was incredible strategic moves by Team Jumbo-Visma on 5 to put a minute of time on Pogacar. He responded with, as the tactical decisions from Jumbo-Visma just completely failed in stage 6. Pogacar uses less energy, gets to the the intermediate stage of the final climb with expending substantially less energy than Vingegaard did, and takes back 30 seconds. And that's kind of made people think that he's the stronger of the two riders in current form. I still think that the margin is narrow. And I think ultimately the team pulling for Vingegaard is better and will ultimately succeed. We have a lot of mountain stages left. I think anything you can find Vingegaard plus money is a go. It's a go, Jay.
Okay, it's a Vingegaard by definition.
The points classification is wrapped up. Not worth looking at that market at all. Almost impossible for Philipsen to choke away that lead at this point in the tour. The King of the Mountains is interesting because the young American Paulus leading right now with a substantial margin. You will note he is not listed right now at BetMGM, so you can get him at +250 with the any other not listed. And the strategery that is going to be at play between Pogacar and Vingegaard as we come down the line here is going to prevent them from really making any kind of move in the King of the Mountains markets, in my mind. So I think keying on Paulus to get across the line there and win the polka dot jersey is the play. So I like that one at +250. And another kind of +200, +250 price. And this is a much smaller stake for me, but I like Wout van Aert to win stage 10. With medium mountain stage, this looks like a tailor-made stage for him to get out into the breakaway and to pull away and get his first stage win of this year's tour. So Wout van Aert in the +275 range for me for the stage 10 victory.
Okay, there you go. I'm glad you got in a mention to my favorite rider, who is any other not listed, to get the polka dot jersey. Always love when any other not listed can come home with that. All right. We are done. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Good luck tomorrow to Ons Jabeur. Good luck to our poor little hearts. Hopefully she can remedy the ills of 2022 and beat Elena Rybakina. We'll break that all down on our next show. In the meantime, don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. From Jay Croucher and Drew Dinsick, we'll see you soon.